Broadcasting from beautiful downtown Tallahassee, it's Nantan Lupan at the Drive-In.
Welcome to episode 22, The Longships, 1964. We are still following the Lionel Jeffries line. This movie is about Vikings, so I love it no matter what. With big stars such as Richard Widmark and Sidney Poitier, it's hard to go wrong. But they did seem to go wrong a great deal. Poitier said, "To say it was disastrous is a compliment." Richard Widmark played the role of Viking Rolfe, son of Croc. He was really too old for this role and turned it down a few times. He finally agreed when they cast his good friend, Sidney Poitier. Widmark has always fascinated me as an actor. He burst into movies playing angry and psychotic anti-heroes. However, in all of his roles, he seemed like he was cranked off. Is this good acting, or was he really a mean guy? Widmark was born in Minnesota and always had an interest in the movies. Like so many, he attended college to become a lawyer, but he was derailed by the acting bug. By the late 1930s, he was acting in New York. When World War II broke out, he tried to enlist, but was medically disqualified for an ear problem. Following the war, Widmark went under contract with 20th Century Fox. Darrell F. Zanuck saw Widmark's screen test for Tommy Udo and had him cast in the role for Kiss of Death, 1947. After being nominated for Best Supporting Actor in this role, Widmark's career was ablaze. Through the 50s, Widmark covered the major genres, westerns, military, and the thriller. He appeared with Marilyn Monroe in Don't Bother to Knock, 1952, and made Pick Up on South Street, 1953, that same year for director Samuel Fuller. That same year, Take the High Ground, 1953, came out, where Widmark played the role of a tough combat veteran trying to prepare boys for warfare during 16 weeks of basic training. A few years later, he was in Time Limit, 1957, a complex post-Korean War drama that deals with the issue of how much a man should be required to take when he's in the hands of the enemy. In 1960, Widmark appeared in John Wayne's The Alamo as Jim Bowie. Widmark was the political opposite of Wayne, so it must have been fun on the set. I can't wait to review The Alamo so I can talk about the stuff that Bowie did before he got to Texas. In 1961, Widmark was the prosecutor in Stanley Kramer's Judgment at Nuremberg. He appeared alongside Spencer Tracy, Maximilian Schell, Burt Lancaster, Montgomery Clift, and Judy Garland. A little later, Widmark appeared in two westerns directed by the great John Ford, with co-star James Stewart in Two Rode Together, 1961, and as the top star in Ford's apology for Native American mistreatment, Cheyenne Autumn, 1964. 1965 found Widmark teamed with Sidney Poitier in the Bedford incident. Widmark was a gung-ho naval captain that pushed his men to the limits and beyond. In the 70s, he continued in movies, but also in television. Although his star power peaked around Judgment at Nuremberg, Widmark would work for 30 more years in movies such as Against All Odds, 1984. Sidney Poitier played the role of Ali Mansour, the leader of the Moors. Original advertising for this film stated, Sidney Poitier in his first non-Negro role. Wow. Poitier became a stage actor after moving from Cat Island in the Bahamas and serving time in the Army. By 1949, he was so respected that he was offered a role in No Way Out, 1950, directed by Darrell F. Zanuck. In this film, Poitier is playing a black doctor that must treat two white racists, one of which is played by Richard Widmark. This was the first of the roles he played that showed the conflict between the races. In The Blackboard Jungle, 1955, he played a resentful youth that was won over by his teacher, played by Glenn Ford. In The Defiant Ones, 1958, he played an escaped convict shackled to a white prisoner. In Lilies of the Field, 1963, he helped white nuns build a chapel and became the first African American to win an Oscar for a lead role. In Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, 1967, he is engaged to a white girl and has to deal with generational bigotry from both sides. In To Sir with Love, 1967, he played the teacher of inner-city London kids with racial and cultural differences. Russ Tamblyn was cast as Orm, the younger son of Croc and the brother of Rolfe. Tamblyn is known for one role above all. He played the role of Riff, the switchblade-toting, ballet-dancing, ill-tempered leader of the Jets gang in West Side Story, 1961. Of course, since this story was a rehash of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, he was a modern-day Mercutio. Tamblyn was a dancing and gymnastic talent that has been matched on the stage by few such as Burt Lancaster and Gene Kelly. Tamblyn also showed a comedic side in his roles, which differentiated him from the leading man type. In the late 40s, he began showing up in the background of films and on the LA stage. He was featured in a few family films such as Father of the Bride 1950 and the sequel Father's Little Dividend 1951. However, the first big role came as the wisecracking army recruit in Take the High Ground 1953. Tamblyn showed his talent as the younger brother in one of the great musicals, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers 1954. His talent in The Young Guns 1956, Peyton Place 1957, and his leading role in Tom Thumb 1958 led to his defining role as Riff in West Side Story 1961. After West Side Story, his roles began to diminish. Titles such as The Haunting 1963, The Female Bunch 1971, Satan's Sadist 1969, Scream Free 1969, Dracula vs. Frankenstein 1971, and The Bloody Monk 1990 tell the story of the decline. He did a little stage work and some TV. He is the father of actress Amber Tamblyn, most recently known for Joan of Arcadia 2003. Rosanna Schifafino played Amina, who was Manchu's wife. Schifafino was an Italian beauty, but most of her roles were not in English. Lionel Jeffries was cast in the role of Aziz, and he may have been the harem eunuch. Oscar Homolka played the role of Jarl Krok, the father of Rolfe and Orm. Oscar had a broad face and a thick accent. I thought he sounded a little like Jackie Mason. Most people thought he was Eastern European. He was in fact born in Vienna when it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He was a successful stage actor who, after the rise of Hitler and the Nazis, moved to America. It is ironic that he had many roles as commie spies, Soviet bloc military officers, and scientists. Clifford Evans played the role of King Harold. Evans was born in 1912 in Wales. He was an actor-producer known for movies that may be of interest to our crowd, including The Curse of the Werewolf 1961, The Power Game 1965, and The Kiss of the Vampire 1963. Story. The prologue and main title work was by Maurice Bender. Bender filmed a prologue before the credits that looked like a tribute to the Byzantine Hagia Sophia located in what is now Istanbul, Turkey. The beautifully done mosaic tells the story of the Mother of All Voices, a huge golden bell believed to be located near the Pillars of Hercules. This term was used in antiquity to refer to the Straits of Gibraltar. The premise of this story is riddled with holes. Where to begin? First, the Viking Age is roughly the period between AD 793 and 1066. The 1066 date comes from the defeat of the Northern Viking army in England before Alfred traveled to Hastings to get the crap beat out of him by the army of William, later known as William the Conqueror. William was also a Viking that came from the Normandy region of France. Normandy equals Northman's land. It is assumed that the bell is on the north side of the strait, or character Ali Manchu would not have needed a boat. The Rock of Gibraltar is on the north side and is much higher than the African side. In reality, the Moors crossed from Africa in AD 711, and the final Moors were expelled from the Iberian Peninsula in AD 1492. Why does that date seem familiar? Oh yeah, with the war won, Isabella could give 3 ships to an Italian adventurer to sail to Cathay. Anyway, the Moors control both sides of the strait, so it wouldn't be that hard to find the bell. Finally, the mosaic says that the gold was stolen from the Muslims during the Crusades. The first crusade was called for by Pope Urban II in 1095, after the Viking Age, and ended in 1291 with the fall of Acre. So other than the fact that the Vikings weren't raiding anymore, the Crusades hadn't happened, and the Moors controlled the territory where the bell was, we're all good. Viking Rolfe, Richard Widmark, is repeating the story of the bell in an Arab market.
May Allah strike me dead if all I have told you is not true.
How can we believe a man with eyes as pale as yours?
He says he heard the bell, was shipwrecked, cared for by monks, and is now trying to make his way home. Unbeknownst to Rolfe, the local Moorish king, Ali Mansu, Sidney Poitier, is also obsessed with the bell.
Treasures of Islam. That bell is made of pure gold, stolen by the Christian armies when they plundered and raped their way across our cities.
Some of Manchu's guards grab Rolfe and take him to the tower for enhanced interrogation. Rolfe insists that the bell is a myth and he is just trying to make a little money. Rolfe breaks free and jumps out the unbarred window and does a dive fit for a Viking as he escapes. Scene switches back to Viking Town, where the men of King Harold, Clifford Evans, are testing a longboat. The boat is a custom-order funeral ship for the king, built by Rolfe's father, Croc, Oscar Homelach, his brother Orm, Russ Tamblyn, and the entire village. This part of the movie shows why custom orders must be paid in advance. After the boat is proven to be of superior quality, Croc takes King Harold into the Great Hall for a bit of feasting and negotiating.
My people have never built a better ship, my liege. Never in all our long history of shipbuilding. She could sail to the end of the world.
At one point during the feast, Croc runs out of mead, so he has to trade his badge of rank for the booze because the deal is not done. King Harold then tells Croc that his village owes 2 years of back tribute and gives Croc only 2 gold coins as the difference between the value of the ship and the money owed. Croc is ruined, as is his family and village. However, about this time, Rolfe staggers to shore, more dead than alive. His brother Orm, who is out winching, finds him and tells him the whole sad story of the boat. Rolfe convinces Orm and Croc to let him take the ship, that has not been properly paid for, to look for the bell. They get King Harold's men on the ship drunk. Vikings have no willpower. To protect his father, they also kidnap the king's daughter, Gerda, Biba Longcar, whom Orm just happens to be in love with. Harold is super pissed and orders all his ships to sea in pursuit. When the hungover crew wakes up, they are all upset and freaked out because the ship has the black funeral sail. Rolfe pretends to sacrifice Gerda, but actually kills a sheep. The crew goes along, but they are loyal to King Harold, and they know it's just a matter of time until the king catches Rolfe. Rolfe and his ship make it to the pillars/straits and hear the peals of the bell, but again they are shipwrecked by the mixing of the Atlantic and Mediterranean current. The crew realizes that Rolfe tricked them about the girl, and before they can get too upset, a contingent of Ali Mansu's men attack. The Norsemen have no problem handling their attackers and are cheering when they see the main body of the army approaching. Rolfe orders them to surrender and ends up in the same tower he was in before, but now with bars on the window. Manchu begins interrogating the Viking, but he is a little preoccupied with Princess Gerda and orders her prepared for a night with the king. Although Manchu has a full harem, his main wife, Amina, Rosanna Schifafino, doesn't just have a cow, she has a whole herd. That night, the main group of Vikings escape and hope to find Gerda and Rolfe. But Vikings have no self-discipline, so when they find the harem, they go crazy raiding it. Lionel Jeffries plays the role of Aziz and is pretty funny in this scene. Amina has Rolfe brought to her room, and they immediately see their worldview is similar.
If ever we had children, my lady, what princely liars they would be.
They work out a plan to repair the Viking ship and help the Moors get the bell. Manchu goes to Gerda's room, but is interrupted by Orm. The king then finds out about the harem raid and finds Rolfe in the room with his favorite wife. To say he blows a gasket would be a kind portrayal.
I shall hang every man of them from the city walls and leave them for the kites and jackals.
He orders all of the Vikings executed by riding the, quote, mare of steel.
You shall ride the mare of steel.
The next day, everyone is outside to see the mare of steel. It's a giant curved blade that you ride down on your belly and face, and the two halves land on foot-long spikes at the bottom. Somehow, I don't think by the time you hit the spikes it would matter. To demonstrate the loyalty of his men, Manchu has Amina select one of the Moors to ride the mare. Rolfe tries to talk his way out.
Well, Viking, you take it bravely.
Well, I have little choice.
You have not seen it at work before.
Fortunately, no.
Had you done so, I promise that you would not be prepared to die so calmly.
My lord, I assure you, I am anything but calm.
But one of the other Vikings has agreed to lead the expedition. Then Orm says they won't travel without Rolfe, and Manchu is forced to cancel the executions. After fixing the boat, the mixed crew rows to the location of the bell.
And may Allah send us a fair wind and a calm sea.
And may Thor do the same, my lord.
The water is perfectly calm, and it is daytime. They should have tried this before. The group ascends the hill and finds the building where they heard the bell. Manchu goes in first and comes out with a shocked look. Rolfe goes in and sees only a tiny bell. In a rage, he slams the bell into the side of the building, and for the first time they all hear the mother of voices.
A great golden bell.
The plaster building is the bell. In reality, gold would make a terrible bell, and the plaster on the building would prevent the bell from ringing. Anyway, they set up ropes and chains to lower the bell down the slope to the waiting ship. Manchu has most of the Vikings clipped into the ropes and chains, and sure enough, the bell breaks free and drags most of them to their death. Now it gets weird. When the solid gold bell hits the water, it floats. They build a raft and tow the bell back to Manchu's city. The bell is moved onto a cart, and Manchu rides at the head of a column with the bell and the remaining Vikings chained in tow. As they approach the palace, Amina yells, "The longships came in the night," and is taken down by a Viking spear. Did the Vikings generally use spears? King Harold's men jump out from behind the silent town folks. A great battle follows with the Norsemen gaining the upper hand. In the middle of the battle, Croc pays for the badge of office and gets it returned. Finally, the bell falls over and rolls over Manchu. Rolfe reminds the king that he has a share of the bell coming, and with his daughter back, all is forgiven. Even Croc is out of debt. As the ending trails away, Rolfe is heard lobbying the king about an expedition to find the, quote, 3 crowns of the Saxon kings.
Have you ever heard of the 3 crowns of the Saxon kings?
The Saxons were around before the Vikings, so they got that right. World-famous short summary. 2 men take a sea voyage, and it ends badly for one. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Remember, you can find all of the links at snarkymoviereviews.com, and I appreciate those reviews in iTunes.